Okay, and we are live. Welcome to a new episode of All Things Xbox podcast. Once again, I've got Logan with me. Logan, how are you doing?
Doing pretty good, Jamie. Enjoyed the Xbox Partner Showcase, and am still recovering from the magnificence of Dune Part Two. How about you, man?
Outside of being sick, it's been a good week. Plenty of new games announced. I really enjoyed the showcase, which we'll talk about in a bit. I know we don't really cover films on the show, but was Dune 2 as good as people have hyped it up to be?
Yes,
Wow.
it was incredible.
Yeah, that Dune 2's been pretty much everywhere over this past week, and funny enough, the Dune Awakening MMO got gameplay the other day, which looks really good. But before we get into all the topics, Logan, have you been playing anything interesting this past week?
I haven't been playing a lot this week. I've kind of been doing like films and shows and stuff. But as far as gaming, Rotato, and then I'm ready to roll with Dark Forces Remastered. And as part of the showcase, which we'll discuss in a bit, the Stalker trilogy dropped on Xbox, Shadow dropped today. So I picked that up, and those were some games I always wanted to play. So look forward to diving in. How about you, man? You still avataring, all the trees and all the mushrooms and everything hidden?
Yeah, I've decided to take a break from Avatar. I mean, it's a huge game, and there's nothing wrong with it. But I, for me, when I'm playing a game, I know that's going to be like 80, 90, 100 hours long. I have to take breaks, otherwise I'll get burnout. So I'm taking a break from that. I've been playing a lot of Judgment. That game, incredible. I've been playing Persona 3 Reload. Again, that game is also huge. It wouldn't surprise me if I'm playing that for the rest of the year. It is ginormous. And oh yeah, I've just been playing Warhammer 40k Bolt Gun, which launched in Game Pass. Well, it came to Game Pass yesterday. That's good. That's a Doom game basically. You press the Y button and you just get a taunt, which I think is kind of funny for that universe. But all in all, I think like it's been a good week for games. And uh, oh yeah, I want to talk about this before we get to the major topics. There's a game leaving Game Pass soon called Hard Space Shipbreaker. It's a game I've been playing on and off since it came out about a year and a half ago. And all you do in that game is salvage starships. You have a laser tool, a gravity tool, and you get to work. And it's very simple. You literally just tear apart spaceships and put the parts in the correct areas. The furnace, the recycler, or whatever. Um, Most people have a game that they play every week. The multiplayer game, the live service game, or something like that. I don't really have that. I don't really play multiplayer anymore. Um, I do want to get back to multiplayer when the Battlefront collection drops, but outside of that, I've dipped out of multiplayer since I want to say Titanfall. So it's been a long time for me. So I don't really have that game I go to every week, but that's how I hop between so many games. And Hard Space Shipbreaker, like, it came out a year and a half ago. I've put like 200 hours into it, and that's all you do. You salvage spaceships. I just want to recommend people to even just trying it out before it leaves Game Pass. I think it leaves Game Pass on the 15th of this month. I'm not entirely sure. It's around the 15th. And it's an incredible game. People talk about wanting these next gen experiences, even though we're 4 years into the generation. And that's one of the most next gen things. You're floating around in zero G. There's sometimes hundreds, if not thousands, of pieces of the starship around you, and it's all simulated in real time. And I don't know, it's we live in a time where we have all these like PC centric games on console, and sometimes the controls can be a bit complicated. Sometimes there's too many menus, but it's so simple. There's next to no menus. You just get told what to do and you do it. And yeah, I highly recommend people play that before it gets removed. Logan, have you played that at all?
I've played a little bit. I'll be honest, it's not my favorite, but I do like what they're doing, and the visuals and the idea of it is just it's breathtaking. But it's like I don't know, just for some reason it's one of those like we made jokes about the motion sickness stuff. For some reason this one bothers me, but some other ones don't. Like the whole like zero G, like the way they've done it. But overall, like I understand why you love it, and I hope more people enjoy it.
Yeah, the motion sickness thing I'll go over quick. A lot of people do get motion sick playing that game because you're floating in space, and sometimes you get disorientated because there's no up or down in space. But I will say this for people that do want to try it and maybe want to download it before it leaves Game Pass: you're floating above Earth in this like space dock where you tear apart spaceships. If you make sure the Earth is below you at all times, uh, you essentially wipe away motion sickness altogether because you have locomotion and all that stuff. But yeah, just wanted to bring it up because it's such a good game, and I think it had huge success when it came out on Kickstarter, and then it was announced for Game Pass, which surprised me. But the developers have had really big success with it, and they're going to continue making games in that universe, which makes me happy. Anyway, we'll get into all the topics. Oh, Warner Brothers, they messed up. So now, Logan, I assume you saw the news yesterday regarding Warner Brothers games.
Yeah, they continue to go down a dark path I cannot follow.
Yeah, so like, if you're a video game publisher and you have the biggest game of the year, the best-selling game of the year in 2023, and you know you have so much success, even though it gets no awards from these media outlets because of reasons, it gets ignored because of reasons in this like fake outrage about the game, even though the developers did an amazing job with it. You would think that it wouldn't sell as well, and it turned out to be the biggest game of the year. And just as you think these publishers might be learning, the AAA landscape is in a weird place at the minute, which we're going to be talking about in a bit. But you would think that if you have a single player game that has no microtransactions at all, it's purely single player, you would be driven to make more single player games, less live service games, and with less microtransactions. And someone high up at Warner Brothers Games recently said that they're going to move away from the traditional AAA games model and invest more in live service titles, which blows my mind. Like, I haven't played the Suicide Squad game, so I can't speak on it. But the overall reception of that game has been fairly negative, although albeit I think it's been forced a bit. But the reception of live service games versus single player is massive these days. People don't want live service titles. People are buying single player games in bulk. Baldur's Gate 3, huge success last year. You have Hogwarts Legacy, huge success. Basically, every big single player game that came out last year was massively successful. Jedi Survivor, Dead Space Remake, Resident Evil 4 Remake. Basically, any single player game. And you have Warner Brothers making possibly the stupidest decision they'll ever make because these publishers will learn. You know, Despite what their morals are or any of that, they will always go towards money. Whatever game they put out next, that's a live service title, it will do horribly bad. It won't do well. And then they'll refocus, reorganize things. They'll probably lay off some people, blame the studio, and then they'll invest more in single player. But I think for Warner Brothers, who has the potential to be the best third party publisher, they keep messing up. And it's messaging. A lot of these companies mess up with messaging. And Warner Brothers want to make possibly a Hogwarts Legacy 2 that's a live service title. Because that's the vibe I got from it. And that's just not going to work out. Gamers have had enough of live service titles, and Warner Brothers shifting into that direction just isn't going to work. Like, Logan, what was your takeaway from that? Because we both don't like live service titles, but Warner Brothers having huge success from a single player game and now wanting to pivot towards live service is weird.
Yeah, not to pile on Warner Brothers, but it kind of just follows a trend of like what they've been doing lately in general. Like their films, they've been, axing a whole bunch of completely finished films or shows for tax cut reasons and making their fans really angry. Some of them sounded really good, frankly. And they've been doubling down on decisions that are making the fans mad. And then this of how do you take from this that you have the best selling game it's monolithic success. Everybody loves it, except, the people who shun it and blacklist it for reasons and don't want to give it awards or talk about it. Besides them, it's been incredibly, thought of. And for them to double down and go like, actually what the people want is live service and it's like putting their hands on their ears going la 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 la, not listening. It's just it's irritating, and it's not going to go well for them. I don't think. I mean, you see what happened with Squad Game that's out. I think some of the hate on it has been over the top forced, but I do think there is legitimately a lot of valid criticism of it. And the fact that they want to double down on that, but take a game that was actually a massive success and try to make it like that, it's like, what are you. Like, I don't even know how to nicely put it. It's just a bad idea.
Yeah, I think Warner Brothers, like, they've had the potential for years to be the best third party publisher. They were going to have their first E3 showcase in 2020, and as you know, everything went to crap in 2020. So like, there was no E3, and like, that's where the Suicide Squad game was originally going to be announced. Hogwarts Legacy was going to be shown there. Gotham Knights, basically every game they have out now or plan to come out in the next year or so was going to be there. And that was years ago. So like, their development schedule is all messed up, but them pivoting towards live service has to be the weirdest decision ever. Because Hogwarts Legacy, like, people have been screaming for new content. We want expansions, just new stuff. And it is going to get some updates this year, but you'd think that with so much success, over 23 million copies, you'd invest in the IP more. You'd make a sequel, you'd make another single player game. But I don't know, man. It's like, it's crystal clear that these companies, the people running these companies have no idea what they're doing. Like, you have these very talented developers making these excellent games, and they are capable of so much more, but they want to put them on these projects which just aren't going to succeed. Because look, if you listen to this right now or later on, chances are you may be a Destiny fan or a Division fan, and like, people that play Division or Destiny, those types of games, them gamers, they aren't moving elsewhere. They're just not. And why should you? You have your armor, your stories all built up in these other games. So like, the whole like trend of these developers wanting to make these games that you spend hours in every day, every week, every month, doing dailies, weeklies, and whatnot. These games that you have to return to, just makes no sense. And I know competition's good for the industry, but if you really think about it, every Destiny style game that's came out outside of Destiny has failed. Remember Anthem? Anthem, by the way, and I know Logan's heard me say this about 8 times now, but the developers forgot about Anthem and they left the Christmas lights up till February. Right? Right? So, like, they forgot about their own game. Nobody played Anthem, and Anthem had so much potential. The Avengers game, we all know what happened with that. It's delisted now. The only way you can play it now is if you actually own it. And the trend's going to continue. The Suicide Squad game, granted, it isn't as live service, and they are going to update it so you can play it single player offline, which is fantastic. And personally, I'm going to get the game because I think the gameplay looks fun. But this trend of making multiplayer style games in a single player environment makes no sense. It's not working. These games are failing out of the gate in an age where these AAA games are costing hundreds of millions of dollars. Wouldn't you think they'd want to, one, retain players, or, two, actually sell the bloody game? Because guess what? I don't buy live service games. Like, I just don't buy them. I buy single player games. If there's a game that has co-op I'm interested in, I'll get it. But outside of that, like, it's all single player. I have no interest in getting online at a certain time to do certain things. Like, that's just not what I'm like. Like, whenever I've got gameplay during the podcast, it's always single player stuff because I can play what I want when I want. I don't like the whole I need to go on this game daily to do this or do that. And that might be for a lot of gamers, and there are millions of gamers that like to do that. But for me, it's just not my type of thing. I think Destiny is a beautiful game. I think it has possibly some of the best first-person shooting combat in any game ever. The art style is amazing. The soundtrack is amazing. I think Destiny is an amazing IP, but as the type of game for me, it just doesn't work. And I would love Destiny to get a single player centric game out at some point, but that's a story for another day. And by the way, if you're just getting into the show, we had to change the podcast to a different day because I'm extremely sick at the minute. But the show must go on, and YouTube doesn't necessarily do its sharing thing. So if you enjoy the show, please share it out and all that stuff. Anyway, the live service thing is not going to work for Warner Brothers, and it will bite them. It will bite them in the behind. Shall I say? It's not going to work. Anyway, unfortunately we have a lot of weird and negative. We have a bunch of good stuff to talk about later in the show. But let's get all the negative stuff out of the way. EA layoffs. EA. Now,
EA strikes back.
Yeah, if you're a gamer that's played games for 10+ years or longer, there's chances are there's a Star Wars game or two being cancelled in that time that you were looking forward to. Star Wars 1313. I'm still salty over. And that was cancelled in 2012, 2013. And it's been a long time. And I still think about that game on a regular basis. There was a Star Wars game in the Xbox 360 generation. It was a Darth Maul game in the style of Arkham Asylum. Cancelled. And it looks fantastic. Well, it's happened again. EA have unfortunately laid off 900 people or something. It was a stupidly high number. And they've cancelled the single-player Respawn Mandalorian game. Massive oof. That one hurt. Because, by the way, that's the second Mandalorian game to be cancelled in the past few years. We were going to get a Lego Mandalorian game. That got cancelled. And this is just the next one up. But the way before we talk about the rest of the EA stuff, is it just me? Maybe I'm high or something, but wouldn't a single-player Mandalorian game in 2024 by Respawn print money? Because to me,
I mean,
yeah, carry on. It's just I'm confused.
No, I was gonna say it's like a platinum ticket. It would, just print money. You see how popular Mandalorian is, the series. Even if the third season had some episodes that weren't the best, but overall, the brand is riding very high. People love Mandalorian, love Star Wars, always want more Star Wars. Dune is out. There's even more thirst for great sci-fi. And Respawn, made Titanfall 2 for crying out loud. They are perfect choice. So for them to get canned is wild to me. It makes me wonder if it's not a development issue, but maybe again, this is pure speculation, but I saw something floating around out there. I don't remember who posted it, but there's some rumor floating around about maybe Disney had raised the licensing fees to some outrageous number, maybe, to where they basically, choose between a Jedi Survivor sequel to wrap up a trilogy or this, or maybe something else. And in that scenario, you obviously should choose to close the trilogy. Could you imagine how astronomical a failure it would be if they had canceled the end of a trilogy for reasons and left everything as it was at the end of Survivor? Ooh. So again, that's just pure speculation, but if it was for that reason, it sucks, but I get it. But still, you would think that as much money as EA makes, that they could finally get their act together and let Respawn cook. But apparently even Respawn is not allowed to cook that much.
Yeah, it's sad, man, because I've always thought about a Mandalorian game, how easy that would be to kind of make. You have missions you do to get currency, and then you trade that currency in for maybe Beskar Steel, then you have Armor Made. Like, it just, the Mandalorian is the most video gamey thing I think that could come from Star Wars. There's so much potential there, and just the fact that it's going to be sitting on a server and get deleted at some point, it's heartbreaking. And Respawn, they are proven to make great games. And it turns out EA is shifting away from licensed IP. So outside of the Iron Man game, the Black Panther title, and the Respawn, Jedi Survivor follow-up, those games are still coming. Outside of that, they are done. They are done. I did find out yesterday that apparently the Star Wars RTS, I should say the Star Wars strategy game from Respawn is apparently still in development.
Oh, thank goodness.
So, and from what I can tell, it's a XCOM style game, or a more recent game would be Marvel Midnight Suns. Apparently, it's going to be in the style of that, and that's been popping off recently. It's been doing really great in sales. Again, for that title, I think it was just a price thing. But like outside of that, they're done. These licenses, like you said, are costing way too much. I think Spider-Man 2 on PlayStation, apparently it cost like $300 million, and from what I read, $100 million of that went straight to Disney. These licenses cost way too much, and like the only thing I can think can happen is you have these developers and publishers work solely on their own IP, or the license holders maybe take it down a notch. Because personally, I think like $100 million for Spider-Man straight to Disney, that sounds crazy. How is that a thing? And like, how much is
like a third of the budget?
Yeah, basically
insane.
a third. Like, you would have thought with something like that would have been a percentage of the profit, but apparently that's not the case. And like, I know Disney wants more games out there based on their IP. They've said it plenty of time. So, like, something's going to have to change because guess what? People like Star Wars games. People want more Marvel superhero games, but that's not going to happen if these prices are so ridiculous where, like, EA is basically shutting down studios, cancelling games. Like, a Mandalorian game would print money. You know how much that hurts me? Granted, I think Season 3 of Mandalorian, bit disappointing. But outside of that, the Mandalorian as a concept is great. There's going to be a film, which I can't wait for. And I think that it's such a missed opportunity to make money. And yeah, it's a shame. I think, if EA is really going to shift back into making things with their own IP, they've got plenty there. They can expand on Dead Space. If they don't make a Dead Space Remake 2, they are out of their mind. Thankfully, Mass Effect and Dragon Age are still in development. When the announcement happened, by the way, Mass Effect was listed in the same post saying Mass Effect ... is still in development. Like, I almost had a heart attack. I'm not gonna lie. But those games are still in development. I think we're probably going to see EA shift to making spin-offs in those universes more. So maybe Mirror's Edge will come back at some point. I think Mass Effect, and obviously maybe I'm a little bit biased towards Mass Effect, just a tiny bit, but like, they could do so much with that IP. Do you know, Logan, a lot of people don't know this. Do you know there was a first-person shooter Mass Effect game in development that was in the style of Battlefield and it was almost done?
No, I did not, but I can see it. And that sounds like it would have been a great time.
Yeah. And like, if it was clearly going to be aimed at Battlefront and Battlefield fans, but like, that game got canned, and maybe they'll bring it back, but yeah, these licenses are costing way too much money. It's a shame because EA, like, as much as people make fun of EA and how much, like, how scummy they've been in the past with, the online license in the past and the microtransactions, they do put out some really good games. They really do. One of the reasons why I think EA Access is part of, Game Pass Ultimate is because EA Access gets like, one game a year, maybe two, if there's a new Need for Speed game. But man, it's a shame to see their studios in this weird place. The whole industry's in a weird place at the minute. I think if there's not like some tectonic shift soon, something's got to give. And while we're talking about all of the layoffs and stuff, Sony had some layoffs, and it made me think, the game industry is going to change a bit over the next few years. There's been a lot of people theorizing, is there going to be a video game crash? I've talked about this for like a year and a half. I've predicted a AAA gaming crash for almost 2 years now, year and a half, 2 years. Um, Unless things change, I think something's going to happen. I think there's probably going to be a lot of developers laid off from every company basically, and we're going to go maybe 2 or 3 years without major new AAA announcements because these games are costing way too much to make. Outside of the license stuff, you have games costing like hundreds of millions of dollars. Like AAA games during the 360 era cost like I think I remember saying Call of Duty costing $30 million to make, and then they were making basically $1 billion off each game. And during the Xbox One era, I remember The Witcher 3 cost I think $75 million, and now games are like 100 million, 200 million, 300 million. You have GTA 6 that comes out next year, and that's rumored to be like $1 billion. Although they're gonna go all out with the marketing for that, but I think like something's got to give, right? And I know some developers won't like what I'm about to hear, and some gamers won't like what I'm about to hear. But I think one of three things have to happen: either we fully accept a hit on graphics and stop demanding everything to be photorealistic, and that goes towards like the normies, the 99% of the gamers out there that they pick up Call of Duty and Madden every year, and maybe the occasional other game. Maybe take a hit on graphics. Maybe start making games in other art styles outside of gritty and realistic, or we accept the fact that not all games have to be AAA. The first thing and the second thing I said aren't mutually exclusive. And the third thing, which I think would be the most beneficial for everyone, is that developers actually use AI as a tool. Because in the 90s, developers start using procedural generation for their games. Again, a tool. And I just think that, you have the advancement in AI, you have these game engines now which can use AI to render things and make things, like Unreal Engine 5. That's just one engine that can use AI. And it just seems like, why can't developers adopt AI as a tool to develop things in game? And that's what doesn't make sense to me. Like, Logan, does that make any sense? Like you see all these developers scared of AI taking jobs away from them, but like people are getting fired left and right. And from what I've heard, like I haven't heard of developers being laid off for AI. It's just developers are being laid off because the job positions don't need to exist anymore because studios are getting closed down and whatnot. But like, do you think like AI as a tool to develop games might actually be the answer?
I do. I mean, it might sound controversial and like whatever, but I don't think we're in a Skynet scenario with AI. Like, I have qualms with AI in general, but my issues with AI are when it gets to the point of like futuristic, self-aware, I am alive, thinks, like, synthetic humanoids or like sentient personhood in like devices and like stuff like that. That kind of AI, like once you get to that point, if they ever get to that point, then yeah, there's problems and a whole bunch of issues you don't want to deal with. But for simply using artificial intelligence as a smart computer to help you, rapidly crank out some level, uh, areas, or okay, I need this graphic texture. I need like a bajillion trees in this area, and I don't have time right now to manually make all these trees. And so, I put this command prompt and I have an AI simulate a forest based off a photograph or something like that. Or you use AI to help with texturing or like simple like little details on a book or maybe some minor lore details, something like that. Like that doesn't bother me at all, and frankly I think they should do that, and especially if they use it as like a remaster tool or an enhancer tool. Like you've seen the Tomb Raider remastered trilogy that came out. And like for the most part, it looks pretty great. And they used AI quite a bit supposedly. I mean, there are a few sections that are kind of like, huh. I don't think it interpreted what that was supposed to be properly. Like, there's this random black window just here in this corner, and I think that was something else originally. Or like this key was supposed to be here, and now it's like microscopic, and I can't find it, but it is there somewhere. Like aside from that, it seemed to work really well. So I think people just have they go the whole John Connor and Terminator route, Ex Machina. Like they hear AI and they're like, oh no, oh no, oh no, oh no, blasphemous, evil, bad, 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 bad. Steal all our jobs. The world is nigh. Like I don't. AI has levels to it, and that is like a quantum leap from where we are right now. And I think like Kyle Katarn said in Jedi Academy, it's like power is not inherently good or evil. It's how you use it that makes it that way. And I think AI is simply a tool, and use it well or don't use it well, but it's a tool that they can use for this moment, and I think it would be smart, frankly. But if they just want to avoid it at all, I think some choices are going to have to be made about budgeting and scale of games because I don't think we're having a game industry crash, but I think we are going to have a colossal monolithic AAA crash if they don't shape up.
Yeah, it's a weird time. The whole thing using these AIs as tools, like you've said, like it has worked out negatively in the past. You mentioned the key in Tomb Raider. I've seen the images. The how you showed like items you had to collect in PlayStation 1 games. You basically had a key the size of Lara Croft's head. And now that we can render things, smaller and in 3D, the key is this tiny little image. It's like a grey key on a grey floor, which you can barely see. And it's like, that's blatantly an AI thing. The GTA trilogy remastered that used AI for a lot of the text and like road signs and shop signs, and it messed up a bunch of them. But like, there has to be a way to use this to help with development because when Matt Booty came out, like I think it was like 4 or 5 months ago, and said that game development used to be 3 to 4 years, 2 to 3, 4 years, and now it's 4 to 6 years, and that's crazy. Like, just, like people will buy games this year or next year, right? And they'll love them, and then they'll have to think, "Wow, I can't wait for this game to get a sequel in 7 years." And then next generation, it's going to be 8 years, and then 9 years, and it's like, by the time GTA 7 comes out, our bones are going to be made of dust. Like that's the reality of it, and it's going to happen. Like people laugh at the distance between GTA 5 and 6 and how that was like what it's going to be, what, 12 years or something in between releases. Like that's going to be a standard for most games, and honestly, if you really think about it, GTA and like Rockstar, they're the only developers that can afford to do this because GTA is going to come out and it's going to be breaking records that day. It's probably going to recoup its money back within 24 hours. And like they can do that, but like we have these like huge like development times. Like, remember how we used to get a Gears of War game every few years and like a Halo game every few years, and now it's like,
Yep, back in my day.
yeah,
Yep, it
back in
was
my
great.
day, it was great. And like, remember that generation where we got 3 Arkham games? That was amazing. Remember when we got three Mass Effect games in one generation? That was amazing, right? And if people know me, I like Mass Effect, and having 3 games in one generation was amazing. 3 BioShock games that generation, and it just seems like we're not getting multiple games in a franchise each generation now, unless it's called Call of Duty or Madden, and that hurts, right? Because there's been a lot of talk about like the next gen stuff, but like honestly, it's the like I'm obviously going to cover like hardware and stuff on the channel, but like when it comes to the game front, like I want sequels to games I like, and I'm just look at the development roadmap, and it's like games are years away. So unless developers use AI for as a tool, it's not going to take away jobs. You know, that'll help because like the longer these games take development, the more they cost to make. So it's like if you can shorten the development time and still get out games of a higher quality, then I don't see the problem. And I always see developers getting angry about art on Twitter. And granted, AI AI art can very much do something in the future, maybe take away from people's job. But AI art is soulless. You can tell it's AI art. People's hands have like 10 fingers each. You know, it's like AI can't do hands yet for some reason. And I don't know, like you can tell an AI image from like a mile off. And I think it's still going to be a while before it's really going to take away from people's jobs. And people are always going to have to oversee that stuff anyway. So I don't know. AI needs to be used to, like you said, generate things in a game. Like, why does a developer have to make 50,000 trees for a fantasy RPG? Why can't an AI do it? You know, if you're playing a fantasy game and you go into a stone village, does every single building need to be made by hand, even if you're not going inside them? I don't know. It's a weird time for games, and that whole. And the thing is, people like high up at these companies are looking at these games now. They're taking so long to make, and their answer to everything is live service games. And by the way, I saved this for when we went live because I was going to pop off about it on Twitter, but I decided to peruse Destin Legary's uh, replies to one of his posts on about how game developers could like fix this whole thing. And a bunch of developers said the exact same thing, and it was the thing I was afraid of: price. They said that the price of games need to go up again. And I laughed. Like, it's not just publishers that think this, it's developers. Developers don't know consumer habits. Like, when the games went up to $70 more than ever, people say, you know what, I'm going to wait for a sale. And as they should. I think new games aren't worth $70 or £70. Hell, if you live in Australia or Canada, you're paying even more. And like their answer to all of these problems is charging more. Like Logan, we've talked about this in the past, and I've spoke to people in the for certain publishers, and they've talked about how in this current generation we're in now, there's a bunch of publishers they want to start charging $80 or more. Like, that's not gonna fly, is it?
No, not for very long. Like, this will be harsh, but whatever. I'll be blunt. Like, there are certain franchises that can get away with charging an arm and a leg because they have these fans by the throat, basically. Like your sports titles, your FIFAs, your Maddens, your 2K basketballs, your college sports when it comes back in this summer, your Call of Duties, your GTAs, like these monolithic, like serialized experiences, except for GTA. Um, they've got these guys, these suckers, trained, and they will gouge them for all they're worth. And not only will the price be up, but then there's all these microtransactions shoehorned into them. Like, okay, I gotta pay for a locker to be able to unlock these shoes, these kits, this backstory, or this mode, or fantasy scenario for this or that, and it's insane. But they will get away with it because they have these people trained that this is just how it goes and how it works. And it's like, well, how else am I going to do it? When in all honesty, it should be where you get one or two of those games a generation, and you pay for an expansion to get the new rosters or the new schools, or like if there's conference changes or whatever, like to deal with that kind of stuff. But the way they have it, it's stacked to where the house always wins, and the house is making bank and will continue to make bank on those. outside of that category, I think they are setting themselves up for a giant cluster, you know, for if they try to do that. And I think people will revolt, and you're going to see more and more people join the hashtag Never Day One types. And, you know, you remember we have talked ad nauseum about Skull and Bones and the price and how that game was DOA on arrival for that price. And lo and behold, it's already to 40 ish just a little while after release. That's a $30 drop off. Just poof, like that. So, more and more of these people are going to lose even more money. And unless they quit trying to galaxy brain this situation and use common sense, it's just going to keep going that way.
Yeah, I think like these publishers and developers, they just don't know what to do. Like, if raising a price of a game to 80, you're just going to push away more people from buying it day one. Because really think about it, outside of FOMO, or if you cover video games, there is absolutely no reason to actually buy any game day one, like at all. Game prices drop regularly, so like people that hate £70 prices, I can't, be annoyed at them for not wanting to buy games day one because they cost too much. Like if you live outside of the US, like the UK price, we basically paying $85, $86 a game, essentially. It's about the same in Canada. In Australia, I think you're paying like $120. Like it's crazy what we're paying for games, and none of these publishers or developers think about consumer habits. They think about, okay, this is how much we want to make, this is how much we need to make, and just think, oh, slapping. I know in the US, like the game prices would go up every like few generations or something, but why all of a sudden are game developers and publishers forgetting the fact that game prices already went up? Right? Game prices went up when this generation started 4 years ago, and now they're just thinking about raising them again. It's not going to work. It's going to backfire hard. And like, look, as someone from the UK, I've seen this happen multiple times. When we shifted to the Xbox One and PlayStation 4 generation, PlayStation, 2K, Activision, a bunch of publishers start raising their price of the games, right? And nobody reported on it. Sorry, nobody reported on it. Nobody in the UK, nobody said anything. We had to just sit back and take it. And like I was annoyed. I was like one of the few people online saying like, why are we paying more for games? Prices jumped from 35 to 50 overnight. And what we had games in the HD generation, and what was the Xbox One and PlayStation 4 really? It was the HDer generation, because remember the PlayStation 3 and the Xbox 360 were sold as HD devices. So like, we've talked about this before. Last generation, those launch consoles we got, as hyped as I was at the time, if you look back, those were underpowered consoles. Those consoles we got in 2013, those should have been high-end consoles in 2010. But, the economy collapsed and all that stuff. But, like, I don't know, just like raising the whole price again thing, it's just going to backfire. There's already an £80 game on Xbox Live that isn't a deluxe edition. It's I think it's Bandai. It's Ni no Kuni 2. That is £80. It's the first £80 game in the UK. Absolute craziness. Nobody's talking about it. And it frustrates me because, if the price of these games go up to 80, we're going to have more developers shut down, more games cancelled. People are going to be wondering why. You're going to have these journalists that don't know what they're talking about be confused and say, well, maybe these games need to go multi-platform or live service. And I don't know, man. It's like, as someone that covers this stuff on a weekly basis, it's become tiring. And just seeing these people just come up with the same things. Like, oh, to fix the industry, we need to go live service and $80. That makes no sense. It's not. Less people are buying live service games more than ever. People get excited about single player games more than ever. The thought of games going up more it's lunacy. Like, it's like these companies just don't know the arse from the elbow. They're just useless. Anyway, I want to talk about all that stuff before we finally moved into. And by the way, again, for everyone listening, your support's appreciated. We had to move to Wednesday because I'm ill. So if you can share it on Twitter, people aren't really, used to the show being on a Wednesday, and this is just a one-off. Anyway, Final Fantasy has been a big topic lately, and some positive stuff. Final Fantasy 14, it's in its open beta right now. It's the number one played free game on Xbox Live right now in the UK and the US. I'm not sure about other countries, and that is massive. That's massive for an MMO to be outpacing Fortnite. There's a new game called Hawken or something like that. Call of Duty Warzone, and it's a Japanese MMO that came to Xbox 11 years after the PlayStation version, and it's number one, and that's great. That's fantastic. It's there's a lot of people in my friend list playing it. Like Logan, I know you're not really into MMOs, and the fact that it's 89 gigabytes has put you off, but it being number one in the free played game section, that's big.
Yeah, it's a massive reflection of the interest in Japanese content on the platform, and the whole, we've been without it so long. We finally get a chance to play it. We're gonna check it out. There's probably a bit of that to it, and it just goes to show that yes, there is an audience. Shocking, I know, for Final Fantasy on the Xbox platform. I know lots of people with Tifa or Cloud avatars want to tell you otherwise, but there is a Final Fantasy and JRPG appetite on Xbox, a strong one, a healthy one. And if Square and other publishers would be so kind to get out of their own way and put them on the platform, people will come and play them. If you build it, they will come. So just it's great to see, and I'm happy. Like you said, I'm not the biggest MMO guy. I would make an exception for World of Warcraft or Old Republic if they made it, because I'm super into the lore on those in particular, especially Star Wars. But yeah, it's great to see, and the whole Final Fantasy topic is its own thing, but it's good news.
Yeah, it's good news, and we're going to be talking about what was shown during the developer partner preview in a bit. But one of the games that was shown there, which I didn't expect, Final Fantasy XIV's official release date was there, and I was 99% sure that it was coming out in the summer, out of beta. But it turns out it's coming out of full beta on the 21st of March, which is good. I've put off from playing it again because MMOs, it's not something you can play for 5 or 10 minutes at a time, right? It's the type of thing I really like to play for hours at a time. I'm making sure when I get into Final Fantasy 14, I'm gonna have the entire day to play. And I already have it downloaded. I played the intro and all that stuff, which is great. I mean, it just shows that there's an audience for Final Fantasy games and MMOs. So it's good for two types of people. If you want more MMOs to come over, this is going to help. If you want more Final Fantasy games to come over, which we're going to talk about in a few seconds, this is a good sign. And it's good to see the Final Fantasy, I don't know, fans in the Xbox circle, be hyped. And by the way, you mentioned the whole Tifa and Cloud profile pictures on Twitter. I've noticed that the Final Fantasy 14 fan base on Twitter, they are so welcoming. They want people to play the Final Fantasy 14 MMO. They want more people to play it. They're happy it's coming to Xbox, right? Crazy. I'm trying not to swear. Crazy. And then you have the other part of the Final Fantasy fandom, which absolutely hate the idea of these games going to Xbox. Which leads into the other part of this topic. So, Final Fantasy Final Fantasy 7 Remake. I'm all over the place today. I have to remember the game developers, names, publishers, game mentions. You tend to get things, mumbled sometimes. Final Fantasy 7 Remake came out in 2020. Very popular game on PlayStation. Funny enough, probably cost more than Tomb Raider to make, yet sold about the same. Square Enix didn't complain. A different topic for another day. So, that was listed as a timed exclusive for a while, and then it was, they put an extra year on it. It was 2 years exclusive, and then it went to PC, and still nothing. and then they put out the trailer for Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, which is part two, and same thing, it has the timed exclusive thing on the box, which makes people wonder, is it coming over? It did come out during the FTC filing last year that those games are apparently, quote unquote, for life, exclusive to PlayStation. And a lot of people still wonder, are those games actually going to come over to Xbox? And the reason I'm on the fence of saying yes, the side of the fence of saying yes, is because it's happened before. The original version of Final Fantasy VII, the PC port, which went to PlayStation 4, was originally going to ever only be on PlayStation. The head of Square Enix came out and said that. And what do you know? 2019 happened, and we got all those old Final Fantasy games on Xbox. And I bought them that day. Final Fantasy VII, day one. And people just think that's going to be the same case. I think it's going to be the same case. And there was an article that went out today. People have been spreading it like wildfire, that apparently Sony has locked down the Final Fantasy VII Remake trilogy. That name is a mouthful. They've locked it down as a permanent exclusive. Now, I don't think permanent exclusive would actually benefit Sony that much when it comes to for life, because as soon as the third game's out and it gets its final updates or expansions or whatever they do with it, 2 years after that, 3 years after that, people aren't going to be picking up a PlayStation to buy that game. In the past, they would put those games elsewhere. So my thought is, maybe, and bear in mind that these articles have been denied already, so we don't know what's going to happen. So I have one of two theories, that the first part is going to come to Xbox this year because it's finished getting all of its updates and all that stuff, or all three come to Xbox sometime after the whole trilogy's finished, which I know some people might not want to hear, but at the same time, Sony's paying to keep these games off Xbox, right? No matter how many times a year, Phil hops on a plane and goes to Japan, he can't overwrite what's happened in contracts. Sony's locked these games down, or even if it's temporary, nothing can be done. We just have to accept that, unfortunately. Funny enough, Final Fantasy 16 never gets talked about in the same light. Anyway, so when these articles were going around today, I noticed people, gaming journalists, and there's also people on forums who were saying oh well, if you want to play Final Fantasy, you just get a PlayStation. And this is what really annoyed me. This whole year more players get to play these games energy. Nobody talks about this. It's only about Xbox exclusives. Logan, have you noticed that nobody wants more players to play Final Fantasy games on other platforms? It's just Xbox exclusives. But the second you say Final Fantasy should be on another platform, excuse me, it's never mentioned.
Yeah, it's it's the great gaming hypocrisy. It's the Xbox tax in full effect. The San Fran blog boys, doing their thing. It's obvious for anybody who's followed it and has covered this whole thing. And that's one of the, probably the, some of the more high profile journalists, have this energy for it. It's brilliant for PlayStation, but for Xbox, it just doesn't make sense. Or, oh, we just can't have that. Everybody should be able to experience this. I'm like, wait a minute. It's what's the difference? It's why are you this way about, my precious when it comes to PlayStation, but when it comes to Xbox, it's equality. We all have to share. This is a communal space where just everybody's on the same page and it's just free, buffet, everybody. But then it's stingy and, you know, just selfish and self righteousness when it comes to PlayStation. And it's annoying. And I generally don't go after folks on Twitter and stuff about takes and stuff, but one of the few times I ever did was about that. And the whole "this you" thing with IGN. And it's ridiculous. And they've kept that same energy. And they're just probably not going to change. even as many you can yell at them, you can scream at them, you can get red in the face, whatever. It's not going to change it. They just clearly have a different standard for it, and it's not fair. It's not right, but it is what it is. And this is the world we live in, and it's dumb.
Yeah, like I'll mention these journalists. I don't have to, but it's getting to that point where I'm just ready to throw anyone under the bus. Um, yeah, figuratively speaking. Like if you look at like the whole Xbox thing, right? And we still talking about Final Fantasy, but like when Pentiment first came out in 2022, I think it was, yeah, 2022. I remember reading an interview like around the launch saying, "Hey, this game's perfect for Switch. Have you thought about putting it on Switch?" And I kind of like tilted my head sideways like a confused puppy dog because like that's what you're asking about a new Xbox release is if it's going to the Switch because it's perfect for Switch. And none of these articles come out for things like hey, reasons why Final Fantasy should be on Xbox. These don't exist, and I honestly think it may have something to do with developers, journalists not wanting to get blacklisted. Sony has been known to blacklist certain journalists because of low review scores or whatnot, or various things. I think someone from GameSpot got fired because of a lower The Last of Us score. So like, I think certain developers want their review copies. So they keep it in Sony's best interest because look, why is it that like I've just seen an article today saying, hey, what does Cliff Blazinski think of Gears of War maybe going multi-platform? It's like who pulled that article name out of the arse, by the way? Like Microsoft talked about the 4 games going to other platforms. Now we might be talking about Gears. We're talking to Cliff Blazinski about Gears going to other platforms and what he thinks. We're not asking the other questions like, why is Final Fantasy VII Remake not on Xbox? Why is the Pixel remasters not on Xbox but the on Kindle tablets? Bloody Kindle. I've never heard people do the whole port begging thing over at, the Kindle community, making fake box art for the Pixel remaster. Like, that community doesn't exist, right? I'm putting it out there. There is no Fire Kindle JRPG community that want more Final Fantasy games. I've never seen that community online. And if they exist, well, good on them. But like that's a surprise to me. But anyway, why aren't we seeing these articles from IGN, GameSpot, all that stuff talking about don't we want more players to play these games? Shouldn't we keep this more players energy? And like every time I brought this up on Twitter, I never get any replies from people saying maybe this is why. It's people saying, because Xbox is trash or whatever, right? Doing the whole fanboy thing. But like nobody's asking the obvious questions, and that really bugs me. And they should be asking those questions, but they're not. And like you have IGN, I'm just using IGN as an example. Like they are the biggest media, gaming media website on the planet, and they don't ask the question. Isn't that weird? That's very weird to me. And like we have these games come out on Xbox, and like the day they come out or the day they announced, these outlets will ask, "Hey, is it going to PlayStation?" Like, I'm sorry. Actually, I'm not sorry. That's bloody unprofessional. Like that. Why are you asking those types of questions? It just seems very out of place, and there's something about Final Fantasy that really like triggers people into like it has to be a PlayStation thing, even though Final Fantasy started on Nintendo. People just pretend that the PlayStation 1 era was like the first era of gaming, and I've mentioned this before. I think a lot of these journalists are people that grew up with PlayStation as their main preference for gaming, and they just never changed preferences. Most Xbox guys now that are over the age of 25 or whatever, they started off as PlayStation fans. It's just you picked up an Xbox controller one day. Yeah, I was a huge PlayStation kid. I had a crap ton of PlayStation 1 games, PlayStation 2 games. Like that was my thing as a kid, and like I shifted to Xbox. I preferred the stick layout. That was a big thing for me back in the day. I was like, oh, the offset sticks kind of work. The controller might be the size of Jupiter, but it works. the menu, the fact that you could burn your CDs to the console and then use them in things like WWE War and War 2, like that was like ahead of its time. And I don't know, you get the vibe from these like game journalists that they've always been PlayStation, they've never changed preference, and like whenever you watch a Nintendo podcast from these gaming media outlets like IGN, they keep it about Nintendo, but they'll talk about games they want to come over from Xbox. If you listen to a PlayStation podcast, they talk about what Xbox games they want to go over, how amazing Final Fantasy is, and PlayStation 5 Pro, PlayStation 5 Pro. They've been talking about that for years for some reason, even though power doesn't matter. And if you listen to an Xbox podcast by any of these media outlets, what's the topics about? What games are going to other platforms? Is Xbox really going third party? And they've been doing this since before these rumors started. Like like if you're an Xbox fan and you go to like IGN, I'm just using these as an example. Like you're doing yourself a disservice because they don't make content for you. And by the way, I've seen YouTubers do this thing where they'll open up their video or stream and say, "Hey, if you want to, if you want Xbox and PlayStation content, I've got you covered." And then they spend 2 hours trashing Xbox. It's like, really? That's the content you make? And anyway, I'm just rambling now. but like the whole Final Fantasy thing, that game journalists have really shown themselves to be ridiculously hypocritical. And like, look, if you go on Google right now and like just search Xbox third party, you'll find a billion articles. But if you search Xbox should be on Final Fantasy or something like that, you'll find maybe one, and it's by a small website that isn't a major media outlet. Like, there's an issue there. There's an issue there, and nobody's talking about it, and that really bothers me. But I wanted to rant about that. And again, like, I know for a fact that there's more Final Fantasy games coming to Xbox because one, Square said that they said they committed to bring more to the platform. They didn't just bring 14 to the console just because. MMOs are the hardest kinds of games to grow and gain an audience from because one, you have to pay to play the game. So it's like, if people really think that Square Enix would start with that title to judge whether they bring in more games over, they have to be out of their minds, because as much as I judge Square Enix, they aren't that dumb. They are dumb, but they're not that dumb. Anyway, Logan, before we change topics, have you got anything else to say on Final Fantasy?
Just that my personal stance is I'm kind of in one or two camps. Like camp one, that it's just not going to happen, and that 7 and that whole story will just not come to Xbox, and that's just the way it is. That Sony gave a Godfather offer, some unholy amount of money in a drop bag at Square HQ to just keep it away forever and always, and to where it would have been dumb for Square to not take it. Like, I'm either in that camp or the camp that it will come to Xbox after the trilogy is out and like has had a little bit of a run. Then it will eventually come to Xbox once all the hype has died down and everybody's not thinking about it anymore. Then you'll wake up one day and it'll magically appear on Xbox. I'm kind of in one of those two camps on it, honestly.
Yeah, and like in the past, people have thought, "Oh, I just want Xbox to get these games just for the hell of it." Like, no, like there's fan bases on Xbox that love Persona now, that have Persona, profile pictures, or Yakuza have active fan bases on Xbox now, and like, why is it the Final Fantasy fandom? They don't want that franchise to grow. I will say this though: if I was Microsoft, I would, get Phil on a plane, fly over there, excuse me, and lock down a contract with Square Enix, not for an exclusive, but lock down a contract to get, let's say, maybe the next 10 years of Final Fantasy games. So like Sony can't step in and lock down a game to be exclusive. Basically what they did with Final Fantasy 13, kind of. Like, Microsoft should do that, because over the next several years, there's going to be the Final Fantasy 9 remake, which might actually be announced this year. It's going to be in the style of Crisis Core Reunion. Apparently there's a Final Fantasy X remake, which will also be in the style of Final Fantasy Reunion. Like, Phil Spencer should lock down 10 years of Final Fantasy games that will make sure they'll come to the platform. Other than that, like, I think things may take time. I do think 16 might come to Xbox this year, though. Anyway, we'll move on. I'm just checking my Twitter, and it's constant bot replies. By the way, Logan, have you been getting any bot replies like this? And this is amazing. If you want an interesting read, go to any of my posts and click on the hidden button. I have to hide sometimes 5 posts per, 5 replies per post. Anyway, this is the new thing bots are doing on Twitter. Mizunari Whoopi, I have no doubt you'll find success with your work. Thanks for the informative content. Keep it up. The article is a testament to the author's expertise. This article is a must-read for anyone interested in the subject. And it's just a GIF I posted of Metal Gear. Saying, the Japanese support on Xbox is, good at the minute. I posted a Dune Awakening GIF. Unreal Engine 5 2.0 coming Xbox Series X and S. And the reply was, Elena Lanzarotti, your support is like a safety net. Thanks, buddy. I appreciate your wealth of knowledge. Was it this? The visuals and the diagrams are very helpful. I couldn't stop reading once I started. Like, what the hell are you talking about? These bots are just dumb. It's like there's a new bot every week. It's like, oh, pick in bio. Stop it. Who's running these bots on Twitter? I don't know. Did they accomplish anything? Does anyone actually fall for these bots? Is that how they get money? Because honestly, Logan, have you had any of these replies?
Yeah, I've had some like that. Mainly, it's like these accounts where it's like some, it's obviously a bot. Like, it's like some generic picture of some girl, like in a kitchen or on a beach or, somewhere, and it'll be like Sarah 7952X7 or, something like that. And just like randomly reply to messages or post content and stuff and replies. And you're like, wait a minute, who? Like, what? And yeah, the bots are wilding at the moment.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring that up because it's all the time on Twitter, and we used to get these on YouTube, like the let's call them corn bots, but YouTube sorted that out. But on Twitter, man, every single post. And speaking of Twitter, I've noticed since all the rumors popped up, about the Xbox games going to other platforms, I'm sure other people have seen these, that there's people in the Xbox community that've lost their minds. They've lost all trust in Xbox. And like I've said before, if I thought Microsoft was going third party, I wouldn't buy any more games on that platform. I'm speaking for me. I wouldn't buy any more games on that platform. But I know for a fact that's not a thing. So I'm perfectly fine buying games, content, whatever. But there's people that have lost their marbles. They've took it to heart. And this isn't me making fun of them. This is being serious. There's people that took it to heart. There's people that I've been friends with on Twitter for years, and they've literally gone MIA. They've gone missing. Good friends of the channel, good friends of me on Twitter, and they've just stopped posting on Twitter. They've deactivated their accounts, and it's a shame because the gaming community on Twitter, it's not like on Facebook. It's not like on other platforms. It's where the gaming community is. If you've gone to Threads, it's not like that. Threads, it's people posting phishing links. It's people, I can't really say, but it's people being weighted on Threads. Threads, if anything, has more spam than Twitter, which is saying a lot. But yeah, if people are listening and you've been disappearing from the Xbox community on Twitter, I want to say this: there's always this doubt on the Xbox community, and this has been going back for years. It's always based on rumors, leaks, forced FUD. If Xbox wouldn't be selling at all if they were going third party because no one would have any trust on them. The vocal minority on Twitter, they aren't the majority. Most gamers outside of Twitter, which is the majority, they have no idea any of this stuff's going on. They don't see any of the arguing. The majority of gamers in general don't see any of this stuff. right? Like Logan, we've talked about this before. Like gamers and I know gamers that have no idea about any of these, games going over the drama on Twitter. Like they just buy games when they announced, when they see trailers, and that's that.
Yeah, like I have friends who, are Xbox players, and they literally don't hear much about anything unless it's like a major new title that was like from a well-known series that drops, like a GTA or an Elder Scrolls or a Call of Duty or whatever, or it shows up in their Game Pass. Like I know people who are like have the horse blinders, like tunnel vision, like you have to guide them to show them an outside possibilities, and there's this whole world out here of this. Like, and then other people who just don't care and they just play what they play, and then, for the most part, Twitter is a bubble. I know we're both ingrained in Twitter and we're well versed in its great sides and its horrible sides, frankly. And, you know, Twitter is a bubble. It is a micro event. It is not a macro event. And for just don't let the Twitter algorithm and the Twitter zeitgeist and hype or hate cycles or whatever shape your views too much. Take it as okay, this is a sample, and then check outside. Do the whole go outside, touch grass thing, and talk to real world situations. I guarantee you it will be vastly different and vastly calmer and vastly indifferent to many of the things that are hot button issues on Twitter.
Yeah, it's just like you said, it's like a closed bubble. I think it's people just need to take a step back because the truth is like most gamers don't know about this stuff like at all. So like the hardcore gamer that buys multiple games a year. And I'm not even talking about the people that just buy Call of Duty or Madden every year. Like the people that go out and buy games regularly, those people don't do Twitter either. They are unaware of any of this stuff. The only game news they get is from Twitter, not Twitter, YouTube trailers and E3 and all those showcases and stuff. Like next time there's a Xbox Direct or a PlayStation showcase or I don't know, like a Nintendo Direct, click on the live chat. All you'll see in the comments are by people like normies that don't know any better. People asking, where's GTA 6? Where's Red Dead 3? All that stuff. Like, they don't know. Unlike, people like me and you, other people on Twitter that are ingrained in this stuff. Like look, we've accepted our fate. Never leaving Twitter, right? you know,
Going down with
yeah, like going down with the sinking ship. Like Twitter, like once you're ingrained in Twitter, you're there for life. But like the majority of gamers they aren't like that. They spend their free time not arguing with people online. um, but yeah, just wanted to bring that up because I've noticed there's a lot of people like missing, which is a shame to see because it's always good talking to people in the community. Anyway, we'll move on. We'll talk about this quickly because this is actually some good news, which kind of came from some bad news. So Activision had all the layoffs earlier on in the year, which people freaked out about. Bear in mind, all that stuff was already planned before Microsoft picked them up. Well, anyway, when you follow a game and you're scrolling on Twitter and you see a single image by a developer with a lot of text on it and a coloured background, you tend to think, oh no, a game's been cancelled, a studio's been shut down, or something like that. Well, finally, we got a good one. Toys for Bob. They are stepping away and becoming an independent developer away from Xbox and Activision. However, they still want to make a deal and partner with Microsoft. Now, this is literally the best outcome because Toys for Bob are one of those studios where they made these excellent products, but they were put on making things like Call of Duty maps. Like, Logan, was Toys for Bob one of the Call of Duty teams as well?
yes, Beanox, Toys for Bob, Demonware, a whole bunch of studios that had roles in other things as well. Raven, once upon a time, used to make Star Wars games and Transformers and stuff. They all got thrown into the COD machine, and this was a way for them to, escape that. permanently.
And it's good to see because, like, one, we could still see things like, maybe Banjo Kazooie, or, we could still see Crash Bandicoot and Spyro from them, but it's like them being independent, that's a good thing, because alternatively, like, that studio could have been shut down. They are one of the smaller studios that's working on COD, but like they've put out good games before, and it's good to see. Personally, I love to see them come out with another Crash Bandicoot game or Spyro the Dragon. You know what? I don't even care at this point. I just want more third person, how should I say, 3D platformers. Like, I think Banjo Kazooie with a Crash style remake would work really well. I think it could still happen. Like, Logan, do you think maybe something that will come from all this? Because them separating from Activision, it isn't the most ideal thing, but it's still the best outcome considering all these closures.
Personally, I think this was the second best outcome. Like, the best outcome would have been if they could stay, but they were fully freed from, Call of Duty and allowed to make whatever they want as a pure Xbox studio. And then second best option was independence because, they can make whatever they want and they don't have fear of being shut down or being forced to do Call of Duty. And it sounds like they're working on a deal, potentially license, an IP or two from Xbox to work on going forward. And, with their whole tweet about horns up and all the Spyro teases that have been happening lately, Year of the Dragon, Spyro coming to Crash Bash, all this other stuff, I really do think they are working on Spyro 4 and potentially a Banjo, who knows? But I do think this is a way for them to have their cake and eat it too. Like, they could be associated with Xbox, but at arm's length, and work on Xbox IP to where it's like hey, it's an Xbox franchise now, and they're doing it for Xbox, but they are separated from the Activision part to where if anything ever came up with Call of Duty or structuring of the company or whatever, they would be exempt from that and would have no worries. So, you know, it would have been awesome if they could have stayed, but I much prefer this and them keeping a relationship as, a friendly relationship with Xbox over, you know what? Sorry guys, you're gonna go the way of Lionhead. We just can't keep you. It This is much better than that.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, it would have been ideal to stick with Microsoft, but with all the layoffs, I mean, I can't really see it as a bad thing at the minute. Um, I do want to see more, like, Crash Bandicoot. Basically, like I said before, any third party, or I should say third person 3D platformer, they are perfect for it. I just want to see more studios basically set free from the whole Activision thing. Like, my main hope for the whole Activision thing was to have maybe Call of Duty go on a 2 year cycle and have more of their studios make their own games. Like the fact that Raven Software and High Moon Studios make COD maps and Warzone content. That's sad. That's really sad. Like, and I think a bunch of them are probably working on mobile Warzone, which is going to be shown soon. That's going to be massive, by the way. That's going to print money. Um, although I think you have to be a madman to play a Call of Duty game on a touchscreen. Like, have you tried that? It's not the best feeling, But I would love to see more of their developers just freed from Call of Duty stuff, because like they used to put out really cool games, and now it's just COD support, and it's like, enough with the COD support. Like, and does Call of Duty need to be every year? Does it really? Like, the campaign, I've always been an advocate for Call of Duty campaigns, but I don't know. We live in this weird age now where you have these free to play multiplayer modes like Warzone, Fortnite, PUBG, and we don't get sequels to them. Not really. Like, Warzone's had like a sequel, but like for the most part, these free to play games like Apex and all that stuff, they basically stick around. But with Call of Duty, you're buying a new game every year for what? Call of Duty campaign, the zombies mode, and the traditional multiplayer. Whereas if you play these games for free, you get new content every single year for free. And then obviously you have to get the microtransactions as well if you want the skins and whatnot. But like, I think it's a bit weird that how, like, Call of Duty is a great business model and a bad one at the same time. You invest in multiplayer all year. You used to buy these map packs and now it's skins. And then the second the next November hits, you trash all that to the side and you buy a new one and you forget about all that. And your investment's kind of like looked at as like pointless at that point. I think that's just the way I look at it. But yeah. Anyway, I want their studios to be freed up a bit. Again, whatever Activision puts out, they're probably gonna print money with it anyway. So whatever. Anyway, we'll move on. So Xbox today finally had their partner preview. It's the second one in like 3 months, I think, 3 or 4 months. But it looks like Microsoft's having these little shows more often. So the last showcase, I believe, was in December or late November. And then we had the developer direct, which was last month. And now there's this. And honestly, before I go over the list of games, I thought overall it was a great show. They had small games, AAA games, new games announced, which I didn't see coming. A bunch of them look cool. Logan, before this stuff, all the games that were announced there, what was your overall opinion of the show?
My overall opinion was I really liked this format. I'm glad they continued it. I thought the addition of a narrator to briefly kind of steer the ship a little bit was a good addition. And Tina Amin did a great job taking the feedback from the first one, which was excellent, by the way, and making this one. And I thought it was even better than the first one. And pretty much every game in there, but a couple of them, were ones I'd be really interested in playing day one. And those two that I wasn't as hot on, I would still check out with Game Pass just to try them. So I think it was really good.
Yeah, the format's good. I think, like, at the end of the day, all we do want to see is the games, right? We don't need behind the scenes for everything. We don't need concept art for everything, and we get that a lot. Like, I put it like this. So the Terminator showcase was the other day. I should say the Nacon showcase was. I think that was last week. And they had this big Terminator game to be shown. Terminator Survivors. And what they showed looked like a CGI trailer, and we got a bunch of concept art. And like a lot of people, Terminator game fans like myself, were super disappointed because they hyped it up for months. And the show we got was awful, basically. The Nacon showcase wasn't that good. Thankfully, this was. Now, anyway, I'll go over all the games they showed. So a new game was announced called Unknown 9 Awakening. I think it's Bandai Namco, it looks like it's a Western game, third-person action-adventure game. The next game that was shown off was Sleight of Hand, which is a third-person stealth game. I'm already interested. The next game was another new game called The Alters, which is a third-person sci-fi, I want to call it action and mystery exploration game. The next game they announced was Creatures of Ava. Looked pretty cool. I know this one isn't going to be for most people. Roblox, Griefville, and Chucky. Not for me. However, you have to realize, unless you're big into Roblox, this meant nothing. But Roblox is huge on console, so that made them happy. Next new game was announced was The Sinking City 2. I did not see that coming because the developers had such a rough time getting the whole license sorted out because the publisher owned it and it was all over the place, and now the developer actually owns the rights to the IP, which is great. But this came out of nowhere, which was really surprising. The next game that was shown off was Final Fantasy XIV. We got the final trailer. Stalker Original Trilogy with a shadow drop, which was really cool. The game's available now. By the way, it's good to see these old Stalker games finally come to Xbox. There's been rumors for about a year and a half that they were going to get ported. The funny thing is the pricing. Now, I think £33 for 3 games that's good, right? I think that's a lot of content there. However, it's cheaper to buy them individually. So I don't know if
It was fixed on the U.S. store for me anyway.
okay, well in the UK
Like,
yeah, in the UK it's $9.99 per game or £33.99 for the trilogy bundle. It's like you may as well buy them individually. But like you said, if they fixed it, they fixed it. But hey, that's 3 games. That's a lot of content there. If you don't really need to play this before the sequel drops this September. However, these are huge games. They've been massive on PC since they first released, I think in 2007. Massive in Europe anyway, Stalker. But anyway, those available today. The next game that was shown off was called Monster Jam Showdown. That looked like a very late 90s game, but with modern graphics, which isn't a bad thing. I think that's very cool. The next game was shown. Oh, this is probably one of the biggest ones there, and I don't think a lot of people are talking about the Persona 3 Reload expansion pass. Now that I think about it, the only time I can think of DLC being included in Xbox Game Pass Ultimate was the Hivebusters DLC for Gears 5. But this is the expansion pass, and it's going to come with 3 expansions included in your Game Pass subscription. Like, that's huge. By the way, Persona 3 is massive anyway. So I'm going to be playing this game for essentially the next 3 years. But hey, it's more content. Can't complain. The next game that was shown off was the first Berserker of Kazan. It looks like a anime style Souls-like, which I'm all for. I can't wait for that. Then there was Tales of Kenzera Zao. This is kind of a Metroidvania platformer. Again, it looks cool. Frostpunk 2. And then, by the way, I'm going to butcher this name like no one else. Kunitsu Ganami, Path of the Goddess. I'm just going to call it Path of the Goddess. This is a new Capcom action-adventure IP where you use magic melee weapons. It looks very good. It was announced last year, and we've had nothing since. But we've got a bunch of gameplay, a bunch of new screenshots and stuff. It looks very good. Now I'll quickly go over the games that's coming to Game Pass that were listed. So you have Sleight of Hand, which is the stealth game, Alters, the sci-fi game, Creatures of Ava, the Persona 3 Reload expansion pass, Frostpunk 2, which is going to be on PC Game Pass. I think that will come to console at a later date, much like the first one, in the Path of Goddess game. So overall, I thought it was a bloody good list. I think that there's a lot of people been waiting for things like the original Stalker game. And by the way, whenever I talk about upcoming games coming to Game Pass on Twitter, I always get people replying, is the first one available? So there's clearly people been wanting to play that. Again, these games were massive back in the mid-2000s. Like, Stalker's a huge IP, especially in Europe. But overall, I thought it was a great show. Most of the games kind of like, take my fancy, shall I say, outside of was it Roblox, Griefville, and Chucky? That's not for me.
I had forgot about that one, honestly.
I can't blame you. It's Roblox, But Roblox has a huge fan base, and that's for them, basically. But honestly, I thought most of it looked good. A bunch of new games were announced there. That was a big takeaway as well. Like, I had no idea that essentially, 5 of these games were in development. So, hey, good show. I know a lot of people have been waiting on Stalker. I did say this is always predictable, right? Whenever there's a showcase of any kind, people always say it was crap or it was trash or whatever. Like, overall, it was a great show. If you went in this thinking there was going to be first-party Xbox games, I don't know why. It was called a partner preview. And, people expecting GTA 6, that's just not going to happen. GTA is too big. GTA can do that. GTA, they can put out a random trailer and a random date, a random time, and it'll get more views than anything else that month. Because they don't have to go elsewhere. GTA doesn't have to be at the Game Awards or an E3 or anything like that. They can do their own thing. But overall, I thought it was a great showcase. I'm interested in most of the games. More specifically, the sci-fi one looked really good. I did notice a trend with this. Most of the games shown today were third person. And there's been a lot of complaining in the Xbox community over the past month about first person versus third person games. Well, I think if you like third person games, there's something there for everyone. The stealth stuff. honestly, as someone that's been craving brand new IP in new games, that Unknown Nine, Sleight of Hand, and Alters. I mean, let's be honest, Alters can just be any sci-fi game's just gonna sell me on it just for being sci-fi. But overall, I thought it was a great show. Um, Now, I do think it's cool that Microsoft, they tend to be having these shows once every few months at the moment, which I think it's a good thing, because after all the rumors in January and beginning of February, again, people should stop running with rumors. A lot of people have been like, will Xbox still get third party support? It's like, it's right there, you know. And the fact that a lot of those big games are launching in the service, I don't think people should be worried. Like, Logan, do you at this point, after all the rumors and a lot of it being shut down and that stuff, do you really have any concerns going forward?
Um, not too many. I still don't think they're perfect, and I think there's rooms for improvement. Like, I really want that, ABK BC batch, which, we think is going to happen, but until it happens, like, that's something I really want to see. I think they could do a better job of consistency with their messaging and more emphasis on making people aware outside of the Twitter bubble that these things exist and what they are. And the support of some of these publishers just for some reason continue to skip the platform for whatever reason. Like, most of the major titles are coming to Xbox now, thankfully, like Persona and their new their new titles going forward seem to be coming to Xbox, like that Metaphor, and then this Capcom game, the Path of the Goddess, and stuff like that. But there are still these odd end titles from some of the major platforms that just skip Xbox for whatever reason, and the whole memory thing, storage issue. There are a few minor quibbles, but for the most part, I feel very, very happy with the direction. I love backwards compatibility. I love the ecosystem. I love the controller support. I love the idea of them bringing older PC gems to Xbox, like the Stalker series. Like, what if maybe the backwards compatibility team is working on a way to make some older PC games playable by emulation or something like that on the Series X? That would open up a whole new realm of games that had been absent from the console. And I think there's a lot of good signs going forward. I think they really, really need to nail their messaging though, because otherwise you get, you know, bleep shows like we had the last month or two of people losing their minds and turning on each other and just going absolutely crazed and feral over things that amount to not much at all or a fraction of what was rumored.
Yeah, look, the partner preview was great, and like Logan said, there's always things that they can improve on, and like, look, I people can call me an Xbox fanboy all day, but I'm going to cover Xbox. I will talk about what I think they're doing a lot right, but there's things that I don't think there's things I think they can improve on, like you said, backwards compatibility. The Xbox 360 store is closing this year, right? In my opinion, they should have a new batch of games, because there's games that aren't backwards compatible that I don't know why, that don't have licensed music. Maybe it's an engine issue, I don't know, but there are games that should be backwards compatible. The DVR functionality on Xbox. Talked about this before. Why am I limited to 1 minute of 1080p 60 footage instead of two when at launch? They made it 1 minute like 3 years ago, and we were never given a reason. The messaging thing, arguably the biggest thing that needs to be changed at Xbox. And look, if you go on Twitter right now and scroll for about 30 seconds, you're going to see multiple posts by people saying like Phil Spencer needs to go and all this stuff because of messaging. Phil Spencer's done an amazing job. Like, look at it. Xbox was basically going to be the Titanic. Don Matrick basically ruined the Xbox One launch. The messaging was all over the place, and Phil Spencer had to actually make Xbox, a thing and survive, and they did. Like, there's a bloody documentary on the official YouTube channel covering this, on their own YouTube channel, where they talk about their own faults. And, like, by the way, I've never seen any other, game company do that. I've never seen PlayStation put out a documentary saying, hey, remember in 2006 when we told people they should work 2 jobs to buy one of our consoles? That documentary doesn't exist. Anyway, but the messaging thing. They need to come out and just dismay rumors straight away and give fans basically, what's the word I'm looking for? Security. Like, if you want to know that your purchases are going to be safe going forward, we've talked about this before. Like, I'm perfect. Like, I think Xbox, they're always going to be around. But there were a lot of people that were freaking out. There were people in my feed that I would consider hardcore gamers were panicking, saying third-party support's going to go away. And it's like, it's just because of messaging. We had weeks, if not a month, of people panicking, making things up, running with every single rumor possible. And I think that's a problem that Microsoft really need to get their hands on. Like, stop the leaks. There's clearly probably someone at Microsoft that just like stirring the nest with these rumors, because there's been things rumored over the past month that blatantly isn't true. The fact that Activision games weren't going to come to Game Pass, that was dismayed. Phil Spencer said in the interview that no, Indiana Jones and Starfield aren't going to other platforms. And then in an interview that day, in writing, said that we're never going to say never. But Microsoft's always done that, even before they start doing multi-platform titles. So, like, it's messaging. That's the main thing. And, the Japanese support, like you said, it's getting better. It's way better than it used to be, but there's still these weird small titles that don't make the way over. Like, why is it Monster Hunter World and Monster Hunter Rise on Xbox, but not Monster Hunter Stories? That's a weird one. We do get the occasional Final Fantasy game from Square Enix, or the occasional, like, the first Kingdom Hearts game on an Xbox console was Kingdom Hearts 3. Now, if you've played Kingdom Hearts, that story makes no sense, right? The story is all over the place, right? With Kingdom Hearts. So they were basically expecting Xbox fans to dip the toe in and, fall into the deep end with Kingdom Hearts, not knowing anything. And then they launched the remaster collection 2 years later, and were shocked that nobody bought it. No shit, Sherlock, nobody bought it. Nobody had any reason to buy it because they were confused and it launched late. They need to stop picking and choose. Like, again, we talked about Final Fantasy before. Final Fantasy, in general, would sell more if it had an active fan base on Xbox. It just doesn't. They've always been in a weird spot when it comes to Xbox releases. The first mainline Final Fantasy game on an Xbox was 13, which completely split the player base and fan base. Like, some people loved it, some people hated it. The next mainline game we got, that wasn't a sequel, was 15, years later, which also split the player base, and some people loved it, some people hated it. And, like, if Square Enix was just going off those 2 games for, like, releasing anything forward, then they are dumb. Square Enix is dumb, but, like, making these deals with Sony, like, 7 Remake, hypothetically, if it released on all platforms, it would have sold like 15, 20 million by now. But these whole, like, marketing deals with Sony, and look, I know I'm backtracking a bit back to the whole Sony thing, but, like, Sony makes these deals and people defend it. And Microsoft, they just do their own thing. They have mixed messaging and people attack them. I don't see anyone attacking Sony over them, not putting out first-party content regularly, not having a roadmap, the fact that they pay for third-party exclusivity for a range of games, ranging from indie to AAA. Nobody has a problem with that. But Microsoft, they get pulled up on everything. And most of it's the messaging thing. They need to shut down these journalists whenever they start putting out these articles. Like, how is it that these articles are popping out daily about Xbox going multi... Like, there was I don't know if it was Bloomberg or something. It was a major news outlet posted, like, Xbox going third party wouldn't be the worst thing, and they were almost writing about it like it's factual news that they are going third party. It's crazy. It's a weird time, but yeah, Xbox, they can improve in ways. Like, look, I think Nintendo and PlayStation can improve in ways. One, PlayStation, I think they could actually let their fan base know what's in development. Again, what the hell's coming? Nobody knows. Maybe have a variety of titles, different genres, different camera perspectives. Not everything needs to be over the shoulder. Not everything needs to be super realistic or an action adventure game with a bow and arrow. Maybe some first-person shooters, some first-person RPGs, some immersive sims, some RTS games. And then Nintendo, I think Nintendo would benefit from new IP. Maybe some different types of IP. They're always going to have their Zeldas and Marios and stuff, which are going to sell absolutely colossal numbers. But wouldn't it be cool if Nintendo, let's say, came out with, I don't know, just, coming up with anything right here, maybe a third-person, gritty sci-fi RPG. Why can't they do something like that?
A first-person shooter.
Yeah, I mean, and people have been wanting, was it Metroid Prime 4 for years now? like people just want something, and maybe, I don't know, a Switch 2 announcement. Like the fact that they have a mobile Tegra chip from 2015, trying to run modern games. You have Batman Arkham Knight running at 0 frames per second. Like, give people something new. I don't know, like, all these companies can improve in different ways. And then you have publishers, which, I mean, those are messing up more than anyone. You have basically, Ubisoft coming out with the $70 pirate title, which we all knew that wasn't going to do well. You have Warner Brothers games that can't tell the arsehole from the elbow. Like, they're all over the place. Like, how do you sell... I'm just confused, man. How do you sell 23 million copies of a game and go, you know what we're going to do? We're going to make a live service title. Not copy the single-player game that printed money, despite all the forced drama in the media, nobody talking about it and not getting awards. No. We're going to talk about live service games, the thing nobody cares about at the minute. It's crazy, man. Like, the game industry's all messed up. I mean, who knows? Maybe we do need a AAA game industry crash just for people to get some perspective. Anyway, the partner preview. I was all over the place there. I think it was good. And I talk about new hardware quickly. There's been some people theorizing that Microsoft they're going to be in a bad spot because of the PlayStation 5 Pro maybe coming out this year. I don't really see it that way. I think it's going to work out the exact same way as the PlayStation 4 Pro did. Xbox did not have the powering out of last generation. We all knew that. The whole resolution gate was a thing. Every game on Digital Foundry was tested. Grass gate, whatever, all that nonsense. And, the more powerful PlayStation 4 Pro came out, and, it didn't exactly light the world on fire. Then a year later, Microsoft came out with their console, and granted, you had, games that were actually 4K, better performance, but at the end of the day, that was a mid-gen refresh. It had some hype, but like there wasn't like some big tectonic shift in the gaming space. People act like that the PlayStation 5 Pro is going to completely change the industry, and we're going to see all these 60 frames games. Like, if there's games now that are 30 by default, I guarantee you they're going to be 30 on that machine too, because developers on console, whether people may like it or not, will push graphics over frame rate. The normies don't know anything about 60 frames, right? We might like 60 frames. I like 60 frames. But do you think the majority of gamers, when they play a game at 30 or 60, they might be able to tell the difference, but they don't really care? And that's just from what I've seen from gamers. Like, I know hardcore gamers that do not care about 60. They don't even know what it means. So I think Microsoft not releasing a mid-gen refresh, it's not really going to cause any hassle. I will say this, though. I do think we're going to have all these media outlets talk about power again, magically, and how it's amazing all of a sudden to have the most powerful console. But that's gaming media. I don't trust gaming media, by the way. I think that goes without saying.
You're not the only one.
Yeah, like I have no reason to trust gaming media because they're not consistent and they are extremely one-sided. Like, the fact that, and like, if you have a news platform, and this goes towards anything, go towards sports or whatnot, like, if you host a news platform for anything, shouldn't you be even? Like, that's just the way I see it. And like in the gaming space, that's blatantly not the reality of the situation. I don't know, man. But like I think future Xbox hardware, it's going to be fine. I do think them wait until 2026. Like people will be freaking out about it being next gen, considering we're in a weird place at the minute with the whole cross gen and game generation thing. I think it's going to be fine. I think Microsoft, my theory is that they wanting to push 2026 with their next gen console. They're going to have Elder Scrolls as a launch title, and they're going to push hard with Call of Duty marketing, because there's millions of gamers that bought PlayStation 4s just because it had Call of Duty on the box. The normies, the millions and millions of people that, support only those few games a year. Your Call of Duty, your Madden, your FIFA, and all that stuff. Like, those people, they don't care about all these platform exclusives or people arguing online. Oh, this this console has Uncharted, this has Halo. They don't care about that. They want to play their FIFA. They want to play their Call of Duty. It just is what it is. And I think, maybe that's Microsoft's play next gen. Go for the Call of Duty crowd. Go for the, the RPG crowd at the same time. But yeah. Logan, have you got anything else to say on the topic before we close out the show?
Yeah, I've got a few thoughts. Like on your last point in particular, the whole, go for the Call of Duty and the normies crowd. Like, we talked about it a little bit on the last episode, but how it used to be like during these certain eras, people would just refer to gaming as like one system or another. Like, mom's like, oh, it's time to get off the Nintendo or something, during the Nintendo or N64 era or whatever. Or, everybody's, playing PlayStation or, the 360 era, it was like, yeah, hop on Xbox, it's Call of Duty. And then, PlayStation again, and PlayStation's the focus, but if you look at it, during those eras, except for, Nintendo's dominance and their still dominant relevance as a separate kind of thing altogether, is like the casual gaming market was largely associated with one of those, with the console and power during that era. PlayStation and Xbox each had their era of Call of Duty focus, Madden, 2K, all that, where all the casual gamers go, and then they get those, and then they get the other games that are happen to be exclusive or the independent games that are on the platform. And honestly, I think they need to make just a massive play and just go just absolutely psychotic about the marketing for Call of Duty. And like just make your eyes and ears bleed like amount of marketing for Call of Duty, Madden. Try their best. Like I guarantee you if they got the rights for the first college football game marketing wise, that could set wave of change in motion that would be monolithic. Like if they get massive stuff like that fully associated with their platform, even if it's not exclusive at all the normies will go, "Oh yeah, my friend got that on Xbox. I guess I should get an Xbox." And then it opens up everything. Like I know, the Twitter wars are all about, like, you know, Ronin this or Returnal that or Gears of War or Halo or Mario or whatever. But at the end of the day, the vast majority of people are playing these quote casuals or the casual games. So go all in on those major franchises, and you can turn the ship around and get way more people on your console than the other one. So I really do think they need to just go absolutely just unhinged, crazed for the marketing for those. And I think it will do them wonders and will right the ship.
Yeah, the Call of Duty thing, like to like the hardcore gamer that listens to like podcasts and stuff. Everyone listening right now, like you buy many games a year, you listen to game news, you watch game videos, you scroll down your Twitter feed and scroll past all the corn bots, and you get into the whole gaming news thing. But like the majority of gamers, like they want their Call of Duty. They don't care about anything else, and that Call of Duty marketing speaks. a lot. Like, I'll put it like this: like when Call of Duty marketing switched last generation, I saw high-profile YouTubers literally post videos of themselves putting their consoles in the like the bin, the trash can, simply because of the marketing deal. They're like, "Oh, I'm going to PlayStation because the marketing and all the maps and that now," and like that thing might happen again. Unfortunately, last generation people built up the digital libraries, but the people with digital libraries, like, that are into Call of Duty, all they have is Call of Duty, FIFA, Call of Duty, FIFA, Call of Duty, and FIFA. Just that combo. And like maybe Microsoft's going to make a play for them. It could work out for them. Like them going first could be massive. Because outside of people complaining about Dragon's Dogma going to be 30 frames per second. By the way, Dragon's Dogma 2 is going to be amazing.
Yes.
Like people will pick up that game and within 2 minutes forget about the frame rate. But like outside of that, like nobody really wants a mid-gen refresh. We're still waiting for these consoles to get more use. But I think Microsoft going a year earlier, that might spook Sony. We don't even know. Like we don't know the conversations that happen behind the scenes. But if Microsoft's really going to get out a year ahead, like that could be a big deal. And remember, this generation, I think the Xbox Series X is an amazing console. I think it's very capable, has a lot of features which I love. The quick resume thing, the backwards compatibility, all that stuff. The fact that you have higher performance games like 4K, all that stuff. The truth is, like, it launched with no platform exclusives. Like all of Microsoft's first party games none of them launched for the console. Like it was the first Xbox console generation which launched without any exclusives. And that was big. Like the fact that Halo was on the box but didn't come with the console at all, like that was a big thing for people. And I think people will look at a new generation. Again, this is 2 years from now, 2.5 years from now. Nobody really has to care now. But the fact that they might be launching a console in 2 years, in 2026, with maybe Elder Scrolls, maybe a new Halo or new Gears or whatever. I'm craving a new Gears, man. But like they're gonna have platform exclusives that time. You just have to escape the FUD that you see on Twitter. Anyway, everyone in chat has been amazing. We don't normally do the show on Wednesdays, but I am like really sick at the minute. I'm still sick. I shouldn't have really been talking for 2 hours, but here I am. I love doing the show. We will be back the same time next week, next Tuesday, same time as usual. I put out a video last night, 10 biggest games coming to Xbox in March. So if you want to know what's coming to Xbox, the link is in the description down below. Also, the link to our Twitters are in the description down below, where we're on Twitter all the time, maybe for better or for worse. But yeah, that place can be a hellhole sometimes, but we can't seem to take ourselves away from it. But anyway, everyone in chat has been amazing. I know it was a bit slow because I didn't advertise the show being on a Wednesday that much. But anyway, back next Tuesday, regular time. The support is appreciated, so if you can share it and all that stuff, again, it's greatly appreciated. We'll be back next week, and I may be putting out another video between now and next Tuesday. Depends on if I'm stopped being ill or not. Anyway, we're out. Peace, everybody.